5 Mysteries from Connecticut. 1. The unsolved case of the Doodler Memorial Murders, 1880s. Woodbury, Connecticut, was no stranger to peculiar occurrences, but in the 1880s, the town became the setting for a string of murders that remain unsolved to this day. Over the span of several years, several bodies were discovered near cemeteries, memorials, and tombstones, all bearing disturbing similarities. Each crime scene contained strange, hand-drawn doodles either on the gravestones themselves or on scraps of paper found nearby. The victims, varying in age and social status, had no discernible connection, yet the doodles suggested a common perpetrator. One of the first murders to shock the town was that of a local merchant, Henry Wheeler, whose body was found near the Old North Cemetery with a crude drawing of an eye and a cross etched into a tombstone near his body. Not long after, another body, a young seamstress named Amelia Howard, was discovered in a similar fashion. The deaths created a panic, and local newspapers began to dub the unknown assailant the Doodler Killer. Despite numerous arrests and several potential suspects, the murders continued. There were whispers of a cult operating in the area, especially since the doodles began to grow more complex, involving symbols that local religious leaders could not identify. The murders eventually ceased, leaving a trail of speculation and fear. Lesser-known facts in this case. One of the victims, a school teacher named Eliza Marsh, was reportedly conducting research into local graveyard rituals, suggesting that she may have uncovered something dangerous. Though often dismissed as folklore, some townspeople believed the doodles were part of a secret code, possibly linked to Freemasonry, which was active in the area at the time. The town kept a number of the tombstones with the strange carvings intact, making them eerie historical relics. Theories. Religious fanatic. One prevailing theory is that the killer was a religious zealot who believed that the victims had desecrated sacred ground, thus justifying their murders. Mentally ill individual. Others suggest that the doodler was a mentally disturbed individual, using the gravestones and symbols to create a macabre game. Ritualistic murders. The symbols have led some to believe that the murders were part of occult practices, especially since the 19th century saw the rise of spiritualism and secret societies. Despite these theories, the identity of the killer remains a mystery, and the peculiar doodles have become part of Woodbury's eerie folklore. 2. The Vanishing of Connie Smith, 1952. The case of Connie Smith, a bright 10-year-old girl who disappeared without a trace in Salisbury, Connecticut, remains one of the most perplexing unsolved mysteries in the state's history. Connie, attending the Camp Sloan summer camp, left her group early one morning in July 1952 to visit the camp's infirmary. She never arrived, and was last seen walking down Indian Mountain Road. What followed was one of the most extensive search operations in Connecticut's history. Search parties combed the surrounding forests, local rivers, and even abandoned buildings. Despite numerous sightings of a girl matching Connie's description in nearby towns, none were verified. Over the years, various theories emerged, but each came with its own set of challenges. Some locals suggested that Connie may have fallen victim to a transient worker or someone passing through the area. Others believed that she had run away, though this theory was quickly debunked due to her strong bond with her family and excitement for the camp experience. Lesser-known facts in this case. In the months following her disappearance, Connie's family received several ransom letters, but all were hoaxes. Several psychics were brought in to help with the search, one of whom claimed that Connie was alive and had been taken to another state. However, no concrete evidence supported these claims. Years later, local children told stories of seeing a ghost girl near Indian Mountain Road, believed to be Connie's spirit. Theories. Abduction. The leading theory is that Connie was abducted by a passing motorist, though no one ever came forward with solid leads. Given the isolated nature of the road, it's possible that she encountered a predator who quickly overpowered her. Wandering and accident. Others believe that Connie may have gotten lost in the dense woods surrounding the camp and died due to exposure or a fall. Given the rugged terrain, it's plausible that her body was never discovered. Unrelated killer. Some have drawn parallels between Connie's disappearance and other child abductions from the 1950s. Could she have fallen victim to a serial killer traveling across state lines? The lack of concrete evidence makes it impossible to determine what happened to Connie, but her case continues to haunt Salisbury's local history. 3. The Connecticut River Valley Killer, 1970s–1980s. Between 1978 and 1988, the Connecticut River Valley became the hunting ground for a serial killer who brutally murdered at least 7 women, sparking terror across both Connecticut and neighboring New Hampshire and Vermont. These women, many of whom were last seen walking alone or hitchhiking, were found stabbed to death in rural areas near the Connecticut River. The first confirmed victim was Bernice Courtemanche, who disappeared in May 1984 while hitchhiking. Her remains were found 2 years later, and she had suffered multiple stab wounds. Subsequent victims included Ellen Fried, who disappeared after making a phone call at a payphone, and Eva Morse, who was last seen hitchhiking along Route 12. In 1988, Jane Borowski became the only known survivor of the killer. She was attacked while sitting in her car at a convenience store in New Hampshire. Stabbed 27 times, she miraculously survived and managed to provide a description of her attacker. However, despite this crucial lead, the case remains unsolved. Lesser-known facts in this case. Jane Borowski's attack occurred while she was 7 months pregnant, and both she and her unborn child survived, making her testimony a crucial part of the investigation. Investigators noted similarities between the River Valley murders and those of the Green River Killer on the West Coast, though no direct link has been established. Several suspects were questioned over the years, but no arrests have been made due to lack of evidence. Theories. Local drifter. One theory is that the killer was a transient or drifter familiar with the Connecticut River Valley, explaining how they were able to evade capture for so long. Truck driver. Some speculate that the killer may have been a long-haul truck driver who frequently traveled along the highways of New England. This would explain the wide range of the attacks and the killer's ability to leave the area quickly. Unrelated attacks. There's also the possibility that some of the murders attributed to the Connecticut River Valley Killer were the work of different individuals, and that the pattern may have been coincidental. Despite extensive investigations, including forensic analysis and interviews with potential suspects, the Connecticut River Valley Killer remains an unsolved enigma, casting a shadow over the area's history. 4. The murder of Helle Crafts, 1986. In November 1986, Connecticut was rocked by one of the most gruesome and bizarre murder cases in its history. Helle Crafts, a Pan Am flight attendant and mother of 3, disappeared from her home in Newtown. Her husband, Richard Crafts, a pilot and former police officer, initially claimed that Helle had simply left him and the children. However, friends and family of Helle were skeptical, as she had recently expressed concerns about her husband's behavior and infidelity. Over time, the case took a darker turn. Helle's friends reported that she had been planning to file for divorce and feared for her life. When investigators dug deeper, they uncovered disturbing evidence that pointed to foul play. It was revealed that Richard had rented a large wood chipper around the time of Helle's disappearance. The investigation culminated in one of the most chilling discoveries in Connecticut's legal history. Witnesses reported seeing Richard operating the wood chipper near Lake Zoar during a snowstorm, with one person recalling that the chipper was directed toward the water. When authorities searched the area, they found fragments of bone, tissue, and a single tooth, which was identified as belonging to Helle through dental records. This led to the belief that Richard had murdered his wife, frozen her body, and used the wood chipper to dispose of her remains, a process that had never been seen in a criminal case before. Lesser-known facts in this case. The Helle Crafts case was the first in Connecticut where a murder conviction was obtained without a body, setting a legal precedent for future cases. Richard Kraft's defense team argued that Helle had left voluntarily and that there was no proof of her death, but the forensic evidence proved overwhelmingly damning. A key witness in the case was a local snowplow driver who saw Richard using the wood chipper by the river, leading to the recovery of the few remaining body fragments. Theories. Premeditation. Many believe that Richard meticulously planned Helle's murder after learning that she intended to divorce him. His background as a police officer and knowledge of investigative techniques could explain his methodical disposal of her body. Impulse crime. Another theory is that the murder was committed in a moment of rage, possibly during a confrontation about the impending divorce, with Richard deciding to cover it up afterward. Failed cover-up. Some argue that Richard may not have anticipated the thoroughness of forensic analysis and that he underestimated the investigators' ability to recover evidence, even from tiny bone fragments. Richard Kraft was convicted of Helle's murder in 1989 and sentenced to 50 years in prison, bringing closure to one of Connecticut's most infamous murder cases. 5. The Hartford Circus Fire, 1944. On July 6, 1944, one of the deadliest fire disasters in U.S. history struck Hartford, Connecticut, during a Ringling Bros. and Barnum and Bailey circus performance. The circus tent, which had been waterproofed with a mixture of paraffin wax and gasoline, caught fire just as the show was starting. The flames spread rapidly, engulfing the canvas and trapping over 6,500 spectators inside. Within minutes, the tent collapsed, leaving panic and chaos in its wake. In the aftermath, 167 people died, and hundreds more were injured. Many of the victims were women and children, as they had been seated closest to the center of the tent. The fire became known as "the day the clowns cried," due to the tragic loss of life and the emotional toll it took on the performers and crew. Investigations into the cause of the fire were inconclusive, though some speculated that it may have been started by a carelessly discarded cigarette or faulty electrical wiring. The incident led to sweeping reforms in fire safety regulations for public events, and Ringling Bros. paid millions in settlements to the victims' families. Lesser-known facts in this case. In a twist of fate, many of the circus animals had been outside of the tent when the fire broke out, resulting in fewer animal casualties than human ones. A mysterious victim known as Little Miss 1565 became a focal point of the investigation. The body of a young girl, unclaimed and unidentified for decades, was eventually linked to a missing girl from Massachusetts, though some continued to dispute this conclusion. The fireproofing technique used on the tent, a mixture of gasoline and paraffin wax, actually made the canvas more flammable, which became a critical factor in how fast the fire spread. Theories. Negligence. The most widely accepted theory is that the fire was caused by negligence, either from a careless smoker or faulty equipment, with the circus's improper fireproofing methods contributing to the disaster. Arson. Some have speculated that the fire might have been intentionally set by an arsonist, though no concrete evidence supports this theory. Curse. Given the circus's history of accidents and tragedies, some believe that the fire was the result of a curse that had long haunted the Ringling Bros. organization. This theory, while not supported by facts, has persisted in popular culture. The Hartford Circus fire remains a sobering reminder of the importance of public safety, and its legacy lives on in both legal reforms and the hearts of those who remember the tragic day. Conclusion. Connecticut has seen its fair share of mysteries, both tragic and bizarre. From unsolved disappearances to gruesome murders, these cases leave more questions than answers. Despite the passage of time, many of these mysteries remain open, with investigators and historians continuing to search for the truth. Whether driven by human darkness, sheer accident, or the hand of fate, Connecticut's mysteries endure as chilling reminders of the unknown forces that shape our world. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed exploring these deep dives into Connecticut's most perplexing mysteries, don't forget to like and subscribe for more episodes. Feel free to leave a comment with your thoughts on these cases or suggest other mysteries you'd like us to cover.